Hi there, my name's Trottier, and I'm going to assume you're here because you have the same problem that I do, and that's that you live in a municipality that requires you to have a secondary pool enclosure. What the heck is a secondary pool enclosure? Well, a secondary pool enclosure is essentially a toddler fence. That's all it's used for, because you already have your yard fully encased. But what can happen is you can wander out that door, wander down the steps, and fall into a pool. So your secondary pool enclosure has to limit access from any exit of the house to the pool. Now, quite simply, I didn't want a chain link fence around my pool. I think it looks really quite aesthetically poor. So what I've done is I've designed and submitted plans to the city to build that secondary pool enclosure on my deck. Now, obviously, every municipality or township has its own set of rules, so you gotta check that out. I paid my fees, submitted my site plans, along with a nifty diagram, proposal of what I wanted to build, and lo and behold, an inspector showed up. We went through my plans, I gave her the tour of what I wanted to do, she took some pictures, and she was off. Now, obviously, you have to check your own rules and regulations because they're probably not the same as mine. But if I had to guess, I would say there's probably some standardization between most municipalities. In my locale, for a steel fence, I need 4 feet between the lower horizontal rail and the upper horizontal rail. Spacing between the pickets can be no more than 4 inches. A locking gate handle has to be 5 feet above the deck. There is a fair amount of other regulations, but I found those to be the really major ones. Now let me show you how I built it. All the steel I ordered was 1/16 wall mild steel. Horizontal rails were 2x1, posts were 3x3, and the pickets were 1/2-inch steel solid bar. Alright, so I 3D printed a drill guide with 3/16 holes. These are exactly 4 inches apart. I'm just going to use this as a drill guide to drill some pilot holes. The purpose of this guide is to make sure my spacing is accurate. I used a locating pin the same size as the drill bit, and after I drilled a hole, I just moved my little jig along and kept moving it and moving it and moving it until I was done. Alright, so I had to keep going bigger and bigger with drill bits to kind of keep this as it fell apart. I've got another couple printing. I'm probably going to have to print 3 or 4 of these. But I do believe I got all my holes lined up. I'm just going to make them big enough now so that I can drop that in there. I made my rails about 3 or 4 inches oversized so that I could cut them down to a nice aesthetic look. After playing around with all these wobbly pieces for a bit, I realized I had to make a square jig to hold this all together for welding. This last little wood piece is just so that all the little spindles will be 90 degrees perpendicular to the rails. Oh, look at that. The first section is complete. Now to repeat the process 3 more times. Measure twice, cut once. That's my motto, and I do actually follow it. These are the feet that I'll show you how I made in a few minutes, but I'm going to use the inside piece, the scrap piece, as the cap for my post. I'm using an additional 1x2 full length to use as a guide. I'm clamping all my pieces to it because it's pretty straight. If you haven't noticed already, this is going to be a pretty tall fence. There's just no way to hide it. So what I decided was to turn it into a bar-style fence. You can lean on it. You can place your frosty beverage on it. You might even be able to eat on it. The piece I'm working on right now is just a supplemental support to hold a countertop style something. Right now it's wood, but I'd like to put some nice granite on it at some point. Alright, so this is going to be my first longer piece, and it's going to be perpendicular to this one. And I'm starting to get worried about how I'm going to get it home. So what I'm going to do for this piece is I'm actually going to make it bolt on right there. Alright, so the reason why I drilled all the holes first and now I'm dealing with my overall length is because clearly you can see right here that I have made an error. Somehow that drifted and I didn't notice it, and everything else looks pretty close. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to shorten this piece because this piece length is flexible because it's going to go up to my gate. So I'm just going to make that a bit shorter. I'm just going to cut that there nice and even, cut that nice and even, and make this all as close to symmetrical as I possibly can. Now for the feet of the 3x3 tubes. I designed them earlier in the year and cut them out way ahead of time, so this footage is from quite earlier in the year. But it took a few tries to get the measurements just correct, but I got it, got everything right, and they turned out pretty well. And yes, the fence is upside down right now. It got flipped many, many times. Alright, just going to grind everything smooth now. I am concerned about the weight of it, so I'm trying to figure out, I mean that's 20 pounds, that doesn't feel that bad. If anything is going to be a little bit heavier, it's going to be this section. I think that feels around, I'm going to say that's probably around 50 pounds. Yeah, for 70 pounds times 5 sections, I'm going to go probably just this main fence is going to be about 350 pounds. These are the brackets that I'm making so I can attach this right-angled piece to the main section. You'll see in a second. I decided on a black exterior powder coat. It was at the powder coat for a couple weeks. I got back a really, really nice black fence. I was pretty proud of it.
Watch your chin. Okay. There.
It's gotta go towards.
Yeah, and then up.
It's gotta go towards.
There. And then now we just shim it forward, right?
Yeah, I think everybody's got to come up on the deck.
I got it here.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's almost winter, not quite, but definitely past the season of being able to do any work. Did not get my 2 gates done before the weather set in, and a little bummed about that, but I guess there'll be a part 2 now where I finish all this. I couldn't actually finish my steps until I do the final grade, so we're getting there. I screwed up. Scratch the part 2 idea. I just decided to make it all one video. Here we are with the inspectors inspecting my fence. They really only looked for these key things: height between the bottom rail and the top rail, spacing between the spindles. The gates have to be self-closing, which these hinges accomplish. And locking gate hardware that is 1.2 meters or 5 feet above the deck. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. It's time for me to go for a swim. Hopefully yours works out as well as mine did.